Trivia and board games have been the highlight of our childhood days. Well, at least for most of us. Linden Cave, owner of Azirra Games here in Guyana, is aiming to bring back that nostalgic feeling to Guyanese by adding his touch to many of the games we grew up playing. I sat down with the young and inspiring entrepreneur to talk about the creation of Azirra Games and what his business has to offer.
My name is Linden Cave, and I am the person that started the Azirra Games business, where we do Guyanese and Caribbean theme tabletop games, so board games, card games, that sort of thing. So I'm from the East Coast, a village called Goodvoacton. So it's just between Plaisance and Ogle. And I used to work at the Guyana Sugar Corporation. When I left, I was doing videography. So we had the program that we call Gaisuko Roundup. I was responsible for editing and going out and acquiring footage and so on. As part of my more immediate tasks. I left my job in November 2020 to pursue this business full time. I know some people would say, well, that was kind of crazy because we were, in the middle of the pandemic. Why would you leave your good paying job to go start a business? And we all know how risky entrepreneurship can be viewed as. But it was something that it was not just the kind of decision that you come to overnight. And at the time, I was more or less just being compliant in following an instruction that I got from God. So how this whole business came about was as a result of me actually taking up the position as the leader of our youth group at church. And at the time, trying to come up with ways to be able to reach across to young people, because we know young people could be quite guarded and they don't necessarily always open up to you or each other. So we were, coming up with different activities to be able to help us to be more comfortable with each other. And we got around to, I said, let's try playing some games. So, we played Sal Out, 1, 2, 3 Red Light, those things that people don't necessarily play these days. And I said, let's try some board games. So, of course, we couldn't necessarily figure out, which game to try, because every game presented something that people didn't necessarily want to, some reason that people didn't necessarily want to participate in it for. But we got around to playing some trivia games, and the game was not well received because, the complaint was like, okay, all this information in this game, these answers are so foreign to us. Like, why would we care about what happened in the US or Russia or Canada? It just doesn't appeal to us. And that was actually the light bulb moment, and I said, but wait a minute. We don't actually have anything that takes us Guyanese into consideration. What if we had a game that actually was focused on Guyanese and Guyanese history and our culture and all these things that we celebrate and that we talk about every day? And they were like, maybe we would try it. So that's where I, got to thinking.
Why the name Azirra Games?
So Azira is actually a combination of the names of my children. So yeah, it a lot of people would ask me like, oh, this name sounds so familiar, but yeah, it's, in my case, it's a word I actually put together based on the names of my children. And I remember walking to work. That was like Saturday afternoon. So walking to work the Monday morning, the name just popped into my head. And I, as soon as I got into work, I wrote it down. And I had my colleague at the time, we sat down and started to work on the logo. And once I got the logo together, I was able to flesh it out around that, because I already had every aspect of this game, I could see it in my mind. So it was just being able to translate it now, into a physical product. And I remember when we were going through the motion, when I got a few months into developing the prototype, and I asked a few persons at work to try out the game one lunchtime. I remember my colleague saying to me, but I remember you sitting down and describing this game in detail. And now I'm seeing this game in front of me exactly the way you described it. And persons are playing with it and they're enjoying it. And, I suppose that was kind of fuel to encourage you that, you're going in the right direction. But I don't know. When I look back, I'd say that persons probably, you don't usually find somebody wanting to take on what I consider to be, quote unquote, new industry, at least in this part of the world. And to be able to do it on the scale that I'm trying to do it at, I sometimes people ask, sure is you alone doing all these things, because how does one person, do all these different things, do the graphics, do the marketing, be on social media, it's a lot of work. As I said, it's not something that I did not necessarily have an interest in doing anything like that previously. It's just that I felt like, because I was being obedient in being where, God wanted me to be, he kind of just dropped that into my lap at the time and I just took it and ran with it. So it has been, I haven't come up with the right word to describe the experience, but it's been something else.
I want to know, because you mentioned that these times persons are not really into games, board games, and so on, especially with technology. What has been the response like when it comes to buying your games and so on?
Well, it's very interesting because I know that going in, when I first started this process, nobody was thinking about the pandemic, and at the time, of course, that was a question that, persons say, well, why do you think people are going to come and buy this game? Because everybody's technology, tablet, phone, I'm like, well, the intention was to actually, I felt that because of what the first game was about, it would pique people's interest. And then once they were interested to actually, find out what it is about, then once they found out what it is about, they might actually want to invest the half hour or the 1 hour to actually try it out. And I know, yes, you have to compete against, the tablet and so on, but I felt like, perhaps we had become so focused on technology and how it has been a part of our lives that maybe it's a good opportunity for us to pause, put technology aside for a half hour, for an hour, and actually come together, whether it's as a family or a group of friends. Like, this is something we kind of not doing enough. And that's what I was saying in 2019. Looking back now, it's funny how, at least for me, I would say the pandemic was not a bad thing, because that's exactly what the pandemic forced the entire world into, to actually really reevaluating oneself, reevaluating your priorities and the things that, you might have deemed to be so important. They're not necessarily that important, on your list of priorities. So you want to be able to spend time with family. Of course, we know all these people that lost all the relatives and loved ones to coronavirus. So it was, when you look at everything, I'm like, wow, God saw this coming and said, prepare this little thing here so that, you could be able to help help persons to be able to gather. And the response has been, when you do something and you put all this effort and this love and this passion into it, you want persons to recognize it or to be gratified with what they see and partake. And it's always one of those things where you have an expectation and then the reality can overwhelm you at times. Because I remember, when we first started to take, well, not pre-orders, but when persons indicated interest that they wanted to buy the game, it was becoming overwhelming because persons were calling you. Yeah, I want 2 games. I want a game, and they had not necessarily seen or understood what the game really was about at the time. And it was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to be able to satisfy all of this interest, and then too, because we were trying to deliver for Christmas 2020, and we were not able to deliver one single game in 2020. We delivered our first game in March 2021. It was very positive to see that persons still had their interest, despite we didn't deliver in the timeline that we wanted to because of all the issues that popped up. Persons were very understanding, and I remember yesterday somebody telling me, I want to give you a review. The game is 9 out of 10, and he said, I would have given you 10, but the reason why I gave you 9 is because I had to pay for it. And persons continue to compliment you, on the packaging. Some people would say, you making this game in Guyana, like this package is being done right here. I'm like, yeah, like, wow, this looks like the kind of thing you would go and buy, at Walmart or somewhere overseas. But I felt from the beginning that that's exactly what you were trying to deliver, and you want us as Guyanese to recognize that these are the kind of things that we're capable of if we would just apply ourselves. And hopefully when other persons look on and see that, okay, you can do this, it means it's encouragement for them as well in things that they might want to do, or things that they might have been, maybe they started off and they put it aside and have it taken dust somewhere. Take it up and just make sure that you finish it. So the response has been very good. It can always be better, but I think because of how we are laid out geographically, most of the people live on the coastline. We have not done any sort of advertising to be able to say, well, okay, we're in this store or that store. We're not in any physical location. So we've been doing direct deliveries to customers. And I think, that has limited us a little. But at the same time, I look at it as a positive in the sense that every game that we are able to manufacture, we have sold it. So it's not like, we have stock sitting around somewhere taking dust. I took a very last minute decision to release our second game in December. Just to sort of test, because while you feel like you have a good thing going, you don't actually know how people will receive it until they receive it. And taking that last minute decision to release our second game called What You Say, and again, the response was very good. We sold out. So, making efforts now to do a reprint to be able to have stock available. So, the response has been good, and even in the diaspora, that's the issue that we have to try to solve in 2022. How do we get the product delivered to persons in the diaspora, whether it be UK, Canada, the US, or wherever else persons are? Because people continue to come, how am I going to get this game? One guy, I was able to get a game to him in Canada last year, and he was like, he had to wait 1 year to get his game. But he waited, and it didn't take away from the experience. It didn't take away from what it meant to them. So those things are encouraging signs, and I think we're going in the right direction.
If you're now tuning in, this is News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM. I'm Tieanna Jordan, and here with me is Linden Cave, the mastermind behind Azirra Games. You mentioned the game What You Say. Tell me about this game, and if we can touch on the other games that you have to offer.
Right, so What You Say is Guyanese Creolese. We're trying to say, if you think about it, Creolese is something we speak, many of us speak every day, and we don't give it any thought. But if you look around, you'd be hard-pressed to find any literature where it is written down, where it's something that we can read, where it's something that we can write. We don't necessarily read and write our language. And as you know, we have not done the best job in Guyana at preserving our culture and every aspect of our quote-unquote Guyanese-ness. So I felt that with What You Say, it was an opportunity for us to actually have a record, that we can say, okay, this is actually a little snapshot of our language that is written down. And the intent of the game is that you would be read a scenario in standard English, and then you have 30 seconds to say what's the Guyanese thing you would say in that scenario, or what Creolese you would use in that scenario. And like I said, persons have responded very well to it because, like I said, this is something that it's a part of us. It's something that we speak without even thinking about, So it has been going good. And our first game is called Real Number One Guyanese. So Real Number One Guyanese is Guyanese trivia. You're going around the board and you're trying to collect the 5 pieces of the flag of Guyana. The first person to collect all 5 pieces wins the game. So there are 2 ways that you can play the game. You can either play with the cards, or you can play without the cards. The cards are divided into 5 categories of questions. So you have arts and culture, science and nature, history, geography, and sports. And every time you land on a space, if you're playing with the cards, you'll be asked a corresponding question. If you get that question correct, you get a little token. So you need to build up your tokens to be able to get the pieces of the flag. And of course, that has been well received. And I am looking forward to putting out our next game very soon. Our next game, I can tell you, is called Brains Box. So I think, again, you try to have a concept that will intrigue people. So I know person might be curious of what is Brains Box about. But at this point, I'm not going to disclose anything other than that's the name of it, Brains Box.
Let's talk prices. What are your price range for these games, and also how can the persons get in contact with you?
Right, so the Real Number One Guyanese, which is our first game, that one goes for $10,000. The Way You Say, that one goes for $5,000. Persons have been reaching out to us via Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. So on Instagram and Facebook, we go as Azirra Games. Azirra Games. I know sometimes the pronunciation throws people off, but you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Azirra Games, and on WhatsApp, our number is 624-0117. 624-0117. And persons can reach out to us there and we can arrange delivery.
Just before we close, what would be your message to other young people out there, or what message of encouragement would you like to leave with them today?
I would say to persons, especially in my experience, like I said, I had no interest in doing what I'm doing right now before I started doing it. But I think today, a lot of young people are sort of pressured to kind of meet the status quo, where sometimes in society we kind of feel like, you have to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. Like, we have these traditional sectors in Guyana. And I think, sometimes persons feel like, well, I really don't want to pursue that. And I think, the world is so big. It's so much bigger than Guyana. So I encourage persons to think outside of the box. And you have to trust your gut feeling, trust your heart, trust your God-given ability, because God deposited something in you that makes you unique. And a lot of times, if you would try to pause and pay attention to what that is, it will line you up with what your purpose is. And a lot of times, the things that we do in life complements our purpose. So, if it is that you're thinking about getting into business, or if it is that you're thinking you don't know what you want to do, you don't want to be a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, business entrepreneurship is it's a lot of things, but it's also very gratifying, to be able to go through a process and see what comes out at the other end. If you can find the temerity to stick with it, that is so critical. That because there are going to be bad days. I I tell people over and over, there are lots of days where I wanted to take this first game and just throw it in the garbage because I'm like, what am I really doing this for? Nobody's going to play this. Nobody cares, But you have to be able to stick it out. You have to be able to go through that tough period. Because if you think about it, if you look at the scientific process that you go through to create diamonds or how you refine gold, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that process. A lot of pressure is required to make diamonds. So we too are all special in our own unique ways. And I think that first thing you have to do is believe in yourself. You can't expect, while we expect society might, be a lot of things, if society does not at the time line up with what you want to do or what you're doing, that doesn't matter if you believe in what you're doing. So, look, and we don't need to go and copy what everybody else is doing. There are enough ideas in the world. There are enough things that we can do to differentiate ourselves. And don't be afraid to be different. It doesn't matter what if there's no established tabletop games in Guyana or in the Caribbean? It doesn't mean that you can't be the first. Why not be the first? Maybe in 20 years from now, your company will be internationally recognized. And, don't limit yourself, because when people say that, the sky is the limit, I mean, that's not even an understatement. It's a lot bigger than that. But you have to be able to believe in yourself. You have to be able to stick it through what you started, because I know from personal experience, I've started a lot of things and quit. I've procrastinated a lot, but this business is one thing that I was able to apply myself and stick with it, and I'm seeing the benefits of that. So I want to encourage persons, we don't have to stick to the traditional sectors. Be who you want to be, as long as it's a law-abiding citizen that can contribute to the development of our country and help to make our world a better place in your little way. Go for it.
That was Linden Cave, owner of Azirra Games, the Guyanese business that is aiming to bring back the trivia and board games we all grew up playing, with the intent of sharing and preserving Guyanese culture. I'm Tieanna Jordan, and this is News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM.